The dust was still rising behind her when she rode into Old Tucson, Arizona, in the summer of 1877, her horse lathered and trembling, her own hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the reins, and she knew that somewhere behind her, the lie was following just as fast as any posse ever could. Winona Webster had been riding for 3 days straight, stopping only when the mare beneath her threatened to collapse, and even then just long enough to let the animal drink from whatever creek or water hole she could find. She had left everything behind in Silver City, New Mexico, everything except the clothes on her back, a small pouch of money she had been saving for a different kind of future, and the knowledge that her life as she had known it was completely destroyed. The lie had spread through Silver City like wildfire through dry grass, and she had seen the change in people's eyes, the way they looked at her, the way mothers pulled their children away when she walked past, the way the sheriff himself had suggested she might want to leave town before things got ugly. The lie was simple and devastating. Margaret Holbrook, the banker's wife, had told everyone that Winona had been seen leaving the home of Margaret's husband at an unseemly hour, that Winona had been carrying on an affair with Thomas Holbrook, that she was a home wrecker and a woman of loose morals. None of it was true. Winona had been a school teacher, had devoted herself to educating the children of Silver City, had never so much as spoken to Thomas Holbrook beyond polite greetings on the street. But Margaret Holbrook was wealthy and influential, and Winona was just a young woman alone in the world, her parents dead from fever 2 years prior, no family to speak for her character, no husband to defend her name. The truth did not matter when a lie was more interesting. Winona had tried to defend herself, had tried to explain that she had never been anywhere near the Holbrook house, but her protestations only seemed to make people more convinced of her guilt. Within a day, she had lost her position at the school. Within 2 days, her landlady had asked her to leave. Within 3 days, someone had thrown a rock through the window of the boarding house where she was staying, and she had known it was time to run. Now she was in Old Tucson, a town she had never seen before, where no one knew her name or her face, where maybe, just maybe, she could start over. The mare stumbled as they entered the main street, and Winona felt a surge of guilt. She had pushed the animal too hard, had been thinking only of her own survival, and not of the creature that was carrying her to safety. She needed to find a stable, needed to get the horse tended to, but first she needed to figure out where she was going to sleep tonight, how she was going to eat, what she was going to do with the rest of her life now that everything she had worked for was gone. The town was smaller than Silver City, but it had a rough vitality to it, a sense of people making their way in a hard land. She could see a general store, a saloon, what looked like a hotel, and down at the end of the street, a stable. She guided the mare toward the stable, hoping she had enough money to pay for the horse's care. Everything else could wait. As she approached, a man stepped out of the stable's shadow. He was tall, lean in the way of men who worked hard every day of their lives, with dark hair and eyes that were an unusual shade of gray-blue. He wore work clothes, dusty and well-worn, and there was a quiet confidence in the way he stood, the way he looked at her without judgment or curiosity, just a simple assessment of someone who needed help. "Your horse is about done in," he said, and his voice was low and calm, the kind of voice that made nervous animals settle. "Let me take her." Winona wanted to protest, wanted to maintain some kind of control over the situation, but she could see that he was right. The mare was swaying on her feet, her sides heaving, foam flecking her mouth. She slid down from the saddle, and her own legs nearly gave out. The man reached out and steadied her, his hand on her elbow, and she felt the strength in his grip, the steadiness. "Thank you," she managed to say, and her voice sounded strange to her own ears, hoarse from dust and exhaustion and unshed tears. "When did you last rest?" he asked, taking the mare's reins. "I do not remember," Winona said honestly. "2 days ago, maybe. I had to keep moving." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she braced herself for the questions, for the suspicion, for the judgment. But instead, he just nodded. "You are safe here," he said, as if he could see the fear in her eyes, as if he understood without needing to know the details. "Whatever you are running from, it has not caught up with you yet. Come inside. I will take care of your horse, and then we will figure out what you need." Something in his voice, in the certainty of his words, made Winona want to cry. She had not heard kindness in days, had not heard anyone offer help without strings attached, without judgment, without wanting to know all the sordid details of her supposed sins. This man, this stranger, was offering her safety without even knowing her name. "I can pay for the horse's care," she said, because she needed him to know she was not a charity case, that she had some dignity left. "I am sure you can," he said, "but right now the horse needs water and food and rest, and so do you. The paying can wait. Come on." He led the mare into the stable, and Winona followed, grateful for the shade and the coolness after days under the brutal sun. The stable was well kept, clean straw on the ground, the smell of horses and leather and hay. There were several horses in the stalls, and they looked well cared for, healthy and calm. The man worked with practiced efficiency, removing the saddle from Winona's mare, checking the animal over for injuries, speaking to her in that same low, calm voice. Winona watched, leaning against a post because she was not sure she could stand on her own much longer. "What is your name?" the man asked as he began to brush the mare down. "Winona," she said, and then hesitated. She did not know if she should give her last name, did not know if the lie had traveled this far already, but something in his manner made her want to be honest. "Winona Webster." "Fletcher Anderson," he said. "Most people call me Fletcher. I run this stable and I do some ranching on the side." "You picked a good town to land in, Miss Webster. Old Tucson is not fancy, but people here tend to mind their own business and help each other out when needed." "I hope so," Winona said quietly. Fletcher glanced at her over the horse's back. "You are running from something, and I am guessing it is not the law, or you would not have ridden straight into town in broad daylight. You would have snuck in after dark, kept to the shadows." Winona felt her breath catch. "How did you know?" "I have seen people running before," Fletcher said. "And I have learned that there is a difference between running from something you did and running from something that was done to you. You have the look of someone who has been wronged, not someone who did wrong." Tears pricked at Winona's eyes, and she blinked them back fiercely. "You do not know me. You do not know what I may have done." "No," Fletcher agreed, "but I know what I see, and I see a woman who is exhausted and afraid and trying to be brave. I see a woman who made sure her horse got to safety before she thought about herself. That tells me something about your character." "A woman in Silver City told a lie about me," Winona said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "She said I had an affair with her husband. It is not true. I have never done anything improper in my life. But she is wealthy and I am not, and people believed her. They always believe the person with money and power." Fletcher nodded slowly, continuing to brush the mare. "That is the way of the world, unfortunately. People hear what they want to hear, believe what they want to believe. But that does not make the lie true." "It does not matter if it is true," Winona said bitterly. "What matters is that everyone believes it. I lost my job. I lost my home. I lost my reputation. I had to leave everything behind because I was not safe there anymore." "Then you did the right thing by leaving," Fletcher said. He finished with the mare and led her to a stall, where he provided fresh water and hay. The horse drank deeply, desperately, and Winona felt another pang of guilt for how hard she had pushed the animal. "She will be fine," Fletcher said, seeing Winona's expression. "A few days of rest and good food and she will be right as rain. She is strong, like her rider, I would guess." Winona did not feel strong. She felt broken and lost and terrified of what came next, but she appreciated his words anyway. "Now," Fletcher said, turning to face her fully, "you need food and rest. The hotel is decent enough, but if you are short on funds, I have a room above the stable that I use sometimes when I am working late. It is clean and it has a bed. You are welcome to it for as long as you need." Winona stared at him. "Why are you helping me? You do not know me. For all you know, the lie could be true." Fletcher met her eyes, and she saw something in his gaze that made her heart skip a beat. It was trust, pure and simple, offered without condition. "Because I do not believe it is true," he said. "And because everyone deserves a chance to start over, especially when they have been wronged. I am not a complicated man, Miss Webster. I believe in helping people when they need it, and you need it right now." Winona felt something crack inside her chest, some wall she had built up over the past few days to keep herself from falling apart. She blinked rapidly, trying to keep the tears at bay, but they came anyway, spilling down her cheeks in hot tracks. She was crying in front of a stranger, this man who had believed her before she had even told him the whole story, and she could not seem to stop. Fletcher did not seem uncomfortable with her tears. He just waited, patient and steady, until she managed to get herself under control. "I am sorry," she said, wiping at her face with her dusty sleeve. "I did not mean to fall apart like that." "No need to apologize," Fletcher said. "You have been through something difficult. Tears are allowed." He led her to a narrow staircase at the back of the stable, and they climbed up to a small room tucked under the eaves. It was simple but clean, as he had promised, with a bed, a washstand, a chair, and a small window that let in the afternoon light. It was the most beautiful room Winona had ever seen because it was safe. "There is water in the pitcher," Fletcher said. "I will bring you some food in a bit. You should rest. Lock the door if it makes you feel better. No one will bother you here." "Thank you," Winona said, and the words felt inadequate for what he was offering her. "Thank you so much," Fletcher nodded. "Welcome to Old Tucson, Miss Webster. I hope you will find it a better place than where you came from." He left, closing the door quietly behind him, and Winona stood in the middle of the small room, feeling as if she had stepped into a dream. She went to the washstand and poured water into the basin, washing the dust from her face and hands, scrubbing until her skin felt raw and clean. Then she sank down onto the bed, and despite her best intentions to stay awake, to remain vigilant, she fell asleep almost instantly, exhausted beyond measure. When she woke, the light coming through the window was different, softer, the golden glow of early evening. She sat up slowly, disoriented for a moment, and then remembered where she was. Old Tucson, the stable, Fletcher Anderson, who had believed her before she said a word. There was a tray on the chair beside the bed, and she realized Fletcher must have brought it while she was sleeping. On it was bread, cheese, some kind of meat, and a jar of water. Her stomach growled fiercely, and she ate quickly, barely tasting the food but grateful for it nonetheless. After she had eaten, she felt more human, more capable of thinking about what came next. She needed to find work. She needed to establish herself in this town, to build a new life. She had been a teacher in Silver City, but she did not know if there was a school here, did not know if they would hire her even if there was. She would have to find something else, some other way to support herself. She stood and went to the window, looking out over the town. The street below was quieter now, the heat of the day fading into a more comfortable warmth. She could see people moving about, going about their business, and she wondered what their lives were like, whether they had secrets and sorrows of their own, whether any of them had ever been forced to run from a lie. There was a knock on the door, gentle and tentative. "Miss Webster." Fletcher's voice. "Are you awake?" Winona opened the door. Fletcher stood there, hat in his hands, looking almost shy. "I wanted to make sure you got the food," he said, "and to see if you needed anything else." "The food was wonderful," Winona said. "Thank you, I feel much better." "Good," Fletcher said. He hesitated, then said, "I was thinking if you are looking for work, I know a few people in town who might be hiring. Mrs. Chen, who runs the general store, sometimes needs help, and the hotel is always looking for someone to help with the cleaning and cooking. It is not glamorous work, but it is honest." "I will take anything," Winona said. "I just need to be able to support myself." "Were you working in Silver City?" Fletcher asked. "I was a teacher," Winona said, and she could not keep the sadness from her voice. "I loved it. The children were wonderful, but that life is gone now." Fletcher was quiet for a moment. "There is a school here," he said. "Just a small one room for the children of the ranchers and the townsfolk. The teacher we had left a few months back to get married, and we have been trying to find someone to replace her. The pay is not much, but it comes with a small house, and the children need someone." Winona felt a flicker of hope, dangerous and fragile. "Do you think they would consider me?" "I think they would be lucky to have you," Fletcher said. "But I should warn you, the school board will want to know about your background, where you came from, why you left." "Are you prepared to tell them?" Winona bit her lip. "If I tell them the truth, they may not believe me." "They may believe the lie instead." "They might," Fletcher agreed, "but they also might not. The people here are practical. They need a teacher and you need a job, and for what it is worth, I will vouch for you. That might count for something." "Why would you do that?" Winona asked. "You barely know me." Fletcher looked at her with those steady gray-blue eyes. "Because I am a pretty good judge of character," he said. "And because I believe you. Sometimes that is enough." Winona felt that crack in her chest widen a little more, felt something warm and unfamiliar spread through her. Hope, maybe, or trust, or the beginning of something she did not have a name for yet. "If you are willing to vouch for me, then I will try," she said. "I have nothing to lose at this point." "That is the spirit," Fletcher said, and he gave her a small smile that transformed his serious face into something almost boyish. "I will talk to the school board tomorrow. In the meantime, you should rest more. You have been through a lot and you need to build your strength back up." "What do I owe you for the room and the food?" Winona asked. "Nothing yet," Fletcher said. "We will figure that out once you are settled. I am not worried about it." "I do not want to be in debt to you," Winona said. "You are not in debt," Fletcher said gently. "You are a person in need of help and I am offering it. That is all. When you are back on your feet, if you want to repay me somehow, we can talk about it then. But for now, just focus on taking care of yourself." Winona nodded, not trusting herself to speak. This man, this stranger, was showing her more kindness than anyone had in a very long time, and she did not know how to process it. Fletcher put his hat back on. "I will see you in the morning," he said. "Sleep well, Miss Webster." "Winona," she said impulsively. "Please call me Winona." "Winona," he repeated, and the way he said her name, soft and careful, made something flutter in her chest. "Sleep well, Winona." He left, and Winona closed the door behind him, leaning against it and trying to understand what was happening to her. She had arrived in this town just hours ago, broken and afraid and alone, and now she had a place to stay, the promise of food and the possibility of work. More than that, she had met a man who had looked at her and seen past the fear and the dust and the desperation, who had offered her trust without asking for anything in return. It was too much to take in all at once. So she did as Fletcher had suggested and went back to bed, pulling the thin blanket over herself and closing her eyes. Tomorrow she would face the school board. Tomorrow she would start trying to build a new life. But tonight she would rest, and she would let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe things could be different here. The next morning, Winona woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the sound of horses moving around below in the stable. She washed her face and did her best to make herself presentable, though her clothes were wrinkled and dusty from days of hard riding. She braided her hair and pinned it up, trying to look like a respectable woman, like a teacher. There was another knock on the door, and when she opened it, Fletcher was there with a tray of breakfast. Eggs and bacon and fresh bread, and the smell made her mouth water. "I thought you might be hungry," he said. "You are too kind," Winona said, taking the tray. "Really, Fletcher, I do not know how I will ever repay you." "I told you not to worry about that," he said. "Eat up. I have arranged for you to meet with the school board at 10 o'clock. That gives you a couple of hours to prepare." Winona's stomach flipped with nervousness, but she nodded. "I will be ready." "I have no doubt," Fletcher said. He paused, then added, "I should tell you the school board consists of 3 people. Mrs. Patterson, who runs the hotel, Mr. Chen, who owns the general store, and Reverend Hughes, who leads the church services. They are all decent people, but they will ask you direct questions. Just answer them honestly and you will be fine." "And if they do not believe me?" Winona asked. "Then I will convince them," Fletcher said with quiet confidence. "But I do not think it will come to that." "You have an honest face, Winona. People will see that." After he left, Winona ate the breakfast slowly, trying to calm her nerves. She rehearsed what she would say, how she would explain what had happened in Silver City without sounding defensive or bitter. She needed to be calm and professional, needed to show them that she was a competent teacher who had been the victim of circumstances beyond her control. At 9:45, she made her way downstairs. Fletcher was waiting for her, and he had a clean blouse draped over his arm. "I asked Mrs. Patterson if she had something you could borrow," he said. "I hope you do not mind. I thought you might want to look your best." Winona took the blouse, touched by his thoughtfulness. "Thank you," she said. "That was very kind of you." She changed quickly, and the fresh blouse made her feel more confident, more like herself. When she came back down, Fletcher looked at her and nodded approvingly. "You look like a teacher," he said. "They will be impressed." They walked together through the town to the hotel, where the meeting was to be held. Winona could feel eyes on them, people curious about the stranger in their midst, and she tried to hold her head high, to look like someone who belonged here even though she felt like an imposter. The hotel was a sturdy 2-story building with a wide porch. Inside, the lobby was clean and well-maintained, with a desk at one end and a sitting area at the other. Mrs. Patterson was a stout woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Mr. Chen was younger, maybe 40, with the calm efficiency of a successful businessman. Reverend Hughes was elderly, with white hair and a gentle expression that reminded Winona of her own grandfather. "Miss Webster," Mrs. Patterson said, gesturing to a chair. "Please sit down. Fletcher has told us a bit about you, but we would like to hear your story from you." Winona sat, folding her hands in her lap to keep them from shaking. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," she said. "I know I am a stranger here and you have no reason to trust me. But I hope I can convince you that I am qualified to teach your children." "Where did you teach before?" Mr. Chen asked. "In Silver City, New Mexico," Winona said. "I taught there for 3 years, children of all ages, reading and writing and arithmetic. I loved the work, and the children seemed to thrive under my instruction." "Why did you leave?" Reverend Hughes asked gently. This was the question she had been dreading. Winona took a deep breath. "I left because of a lie," she said. The wife of a prominent man in town accused me of having an affair with her husband. It was not true. I had never been inappropriate with him or anyone else. But she was wealthy and influential, and I was not. People believed her. I lost my position, and it became clear that I was no longer safe in Silver City, so I left. There was a long silence. Mrs. Patterson's sharp eyes studied her intently. "That is a serious accusation," she said. "Why would this woman lie about you?" "I do not know," Winona said honestly. "I have thought about it many times. Perhaps she suspected her husband of infidelity and needed someone to blame. Perhaps she simply did not like me. I truly do not know, but I can tell you on my honor that I did nothing wrong." "You have any references from Silver City?" Mr. Chen asked. "Anyone who could speak to your character?" Winona's heart sank. "No," she admitted. "I left in such a hurry that I did not think to ask for letters of recommendation, and even if I had, I do not know who would have written them. By the time I left, most people had turned against me." She could see the doubt creeping into their expressions, and she felt desperation rising in her chest. This was not going well. They were going to turn her away just like everyone else had. But then Fletcher spoke up. "I believe her," he said quietly. "I know I have only known her for a day, but I am a good judge of people, and I believe she is telling the truth. She came here running from something that was not her fault, and she deserves a chance to start over. We need a teacher. She is a teacher. It seems like a simple solution to me." Mrs. Patterson looked at Fletcher with raised eyebrows. "You are willing to stake your reputation on a woman you have known for one day?" "Yes," Fletcher said without hesitation. "I am." Reverend Hughes leaned forward. "Miss Webster, do you believe in God?" "Yes," Winona said. "I was raised in the church. My faith has been tested by what has happened to me, but I still believe." The Reverend nodded slowly. "Then I will ask you to swear before God that you are telling us the truth, that you did not commit the acts you were accused of, and that you will conduct yourself with propriety and integrity if we give you this position." Winona met his eyes. "I swear before God that I am telling the truth. I did nothing wrong in Silver City, and if you give me this position, I will be a teacher you can be proud of. I will treat the children with respect and care, and I will uphold the standards of this community." Reverend Hughes sat back, a small smile on his face. "I believe you," he said simply. Mrs. Patterson and Mr. Chen exchanged glances. Finally, Mrs. Patterson said, "We will give you a trial period, 3 months. If the children are learning and there are no complaints about your conduct, the position will be yours permanently. The salary is $30 a month, and you will have the use of the schoolhouse, which has a small living quarters attached. Does that seem acceptable to you?" $30 a month was less than she had made in Silver City, but it was enough to live on, and she would have a roof over her head. "Yes," Winona said, relief flooding through her. "That is more than acceptable. Thank you so much. School will start in 2 weeks, Mr. Chen said. That will give you time to settle in and prepare. We will expect you to be ready by then." "I will be," Winona promised. As they left the hotel, Winona felt as if she were floating. She had done it. She had a job, a place to live, a chance to start over. And it was all because of Fletcher, who had believed in her when he had no reason to. "Thank you," she said to him as they walked back toward the stable. "I could not have done that without you." "You did it yourself," Fletcher said. "You were honest and brave, and they saw that. I just gave them a little push in the right direction." "It was more than a little push," Winona said. "You put your reputation on the line for me." "Why?" Fletcher stopped walking and turned to face her. "Because when I saw you yesterday, exhausted and afraid and trying so hard to be strong, I saw someone worth believing in. And I do not regret that decision. Not for a second." Winona felt heat rise to her cheeks. I hope I can prove worthy of that belief." "You already have," Fletcher said. Over the next 2 weeks, Winona threw herself into preparing for school. The schoolhouse was a simple building on the edge of town, with one large room for lessons and a small living space in the back that consisted of a bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a washroom. It was modest, but it was hers, and she cleaned it until it shone. Fletcher helped her move her few belongings from the stable to the schoolhouse, and he also helped her acquire the supplies she would need: slates and chalk, books, paper, pens. The school board provided some of the funds, but Fletcher supplemented them with his own money, insisting it was a loan she could pay back whenever she was able. "You are doing too much for me," Winona protested. "I am investing in the town's future," Fletcher said with a grin. "Smart children make for a smart community. That benefits everyone." But Winona suspected his motivations were not quite so altruistic. She had noticed the way he looked at her sometimes, when he thought she was not paying attention. There was something in his eyes, something warm and interested, and it made her pulse quicken in a way that was both exciting and terrifying. She had never had much experience with men. Her focus had always been on her work, on being a good teacher, on making her parents proud before they died. She had had a few suitors over the years, but none of them had made her feel the way Fletcher did. None of them had made her heart race just by walking into a room, but she was also afraid. The lie that had destroyed her life in Silver City had involved a man, even if she had never actually done anything wrong. She did not want to give people any reason to question her morals again. She needed to be careful to maintain a proper distance, to focus on her work and nothing else. Still, it was hard to maintain that distance when Fletcher was so helpful, so present, so easy to talk to. He stopped by the schoolhouse almost every day, ostensibly to check on her progress, but really, she suspected, just to see her. They would talk for hours, about everything and nothing, and Winona found herself looking forward to his visits more than she should. He told her about his life, how he had come to Old Tucson 5 years ago with nothing but a horse and a saddle, how he had worked hard and saved his money and eventually been able to buy the stable and a small ranch outside of town. He told her about his family back in Texas, his parents and 3 younger sisters, how he sent money home when he could to help support them. Winona told him about her own family, her parents who had been kind and loving but poor, how they had scrimped and saved to send her to a teacher's college, how proud they had been when she got her first position. She told him about the fever that had taken them both within a week of each other, how lost she had felt in the aftermath, how teaching had become her anchor, her purpose. "You must miss them terribly," Fletcher said one evening as they sat on the schoolhouse steps, watching the sun set over the desert. "Every day," Winona said. "But I like to think they would be proud of me for starting over, for not giving up even when things got difficult." "They would be," Fletcher said with certainty. "You are one of the strongest people I have ever met, Winona," she laughed softly. "I do not feel strong. Most of the time I feel like I am barely holding myself together." "That is what strength is," Fletcher said. "Holding yourself together when everything in you wants to fall apart. You have done that and you are still here, still fighting. That is strength." Winona looked at him, at the sincerity in his face, and felt something shift inside her. This man saw her, really saw her, in a way no one else ever had. He did not see a scandal or a victim or a charity case. He saw her as a person, flawed and struggling but worthy of respect and kindness. "Thank you for believing in me," she said quietly. "Always," Fletcher said, and the word hung in the air between them, weighted with promise. School started on a Monday morning in late August. Winona had 15 students, ranging in age from 6 to 14, children of ranchers and shopkeepers and miners. They filed into the schoolhouse with varying degrees of enthusiasm, some excited to be there, others clearly wishing they were anywhere else. Winona stood at the front of the room, her hands clasped to hide their shaking, and introduced herself. "Good morning," she said. "My name is Miss Webster, and I am your new teacher. I am very happy to be here in Old Tucson, and I am looking forward to getting to know all of you." One of the older boys, a lanky 14-year-old with a suspicious expression, raised his hand. "Where did you come from, Miss Webster?" "I came from Silver City, New Mexico," Winona said, keeping her voice steady. "Why did you leave?" the boy asked. Winona had known this question would come eventually, but she had hoped it would not be on the first day. "I left because it was time for a change," she said. "Sometimes people need to start fresh somewhere new. I am very glad I came here." The boy looked like he wanted to ask more questions, but Winona quickly moved on, directing the students to take their seats and beginning the first lesson. She had them introduce themselves and tell her a bit about what they already knew, so she could assess where to start with each of them. As the day progressed, Winona felt herself relaxing into the familiar rhythms of teaching. This was what she loved, what she was good at. The children were attentive and curious, and even the skeptical older boy seemed to warm up to her a bit as the day went on. When school let out at 3 o'clock, Winona felt exhausted but happy. It had been a good first day. She was going to be all right here. Fletcher stopped by that evening as she had known he would. "How did it go?" he asked. "It went well," Winona said, unable to keep the smile off her face. "The children are wonderful. I think I am going to enjoy teaching them." "I knew you would," Fletcher said. "You are a natural." "One of the boys asked me why I left Silver City," Winona admitted. "I did not tell him the truth. I just said I needed a change." "That is the truth," Fletcher pointed out. "You do not owe anyone the whole story if you do not want to tell it." "I know," Winona said. "But I do not like feeling as if I am hiding something." "You are not hiding," Fletcher said gently. "You are protecting yourself. There is a difference." They sat together on the schoolhouse steps again, and Winona found herself leaning slightly toward him, drawn by the warmth of his presence. It would be so easy to let herself fall for this man, to let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have something good in her life again. But the fear was still there, the memory of how quickly everything had fallen apart in Silver City, how easily a reputation could be destroyed. She could not afford to make any mistakes, could not afford to give anyone any reason to question her character. "Fletcher," she said carefully, "I appreciate everything you have done for me, more than I can say, but I need to be careful. I cannot afford any hint of impropriety. People are already going to be watching me closely because I am new and because I am a woman on my own. I cannot give them any reason to gossip." Fletcher was quiet for a long moment. "Are you saying you do not want me to visit anymore?" "No," Winona said quickly. "I just think we need to be mindful of appearances. Maybe you should not come by quite so often, or at least not in the evenings when we are alone." She could see the hurt in his eyes, but he nodded. "I understand. You are right to be cautious. I do not want to make things difficult for you." "It is not that I do not enjoy your company," Winona said, feeling miserable. "I do, very much, but I have to think about my position here, about my future." "I know," Fletcher said. He stood up, dusting off his pants. "I will see you around town then. If you need anything, you know where to find me." He left, and Winona watched him go, feeling as if she had just made a terrible mistake. But what else could she do? She had to protect herself, had to be smart, had to think with her head and not her heart. Still, as she went back inside the empty schoolhouse, she felt lonelier than she had in a long time. The weeks passed, and Winona settled into a routine. She taught during the day, prepared lessons in the evening, and spent her Sundays at church, where she was gradually getting to know the other members of the community. People were friendly but reserved, and she could tell they were still making up their minds about her. She saw Fletcher around town, but their interactions were brief and polite, nothing like the long conversations they had shared before. He was keeping his distance, just as she had asked, but she missed him terribly. She missed the way he made her laugh, the way he listened when she talked, the way he looked at her as if she were someone special. One Saturday in late September, Winona was at the general store buying supplies when she overheard two women talking near the fabric section. She did not mean to eavesdrop, but her own name caught her attention. "I still do not understand why the school board hired her," one of the women was saying. "A woman who shows up out of nowhere with no references, no family, nothing. It seems suspicious to me." "I heard she was running from something," the other woman said. "Some kind of scandal. Mrs. Patterson said she claimed someone lied about her, but who knows if that is true." "Exactly," the first woman said. "And did you see how Fletcher Anderson was following her around like a puppy when she first arrived? I would not be surprised if there was something improper going on there." Winona felt as if she had been slapped. She stood frozen in the aisle, her heart pounding as the women continued their speculation. "Well, I am keeping my children in school for now," the second woman said. "But if there is any hint of impropriety, I will pull them out immediately. We cannot have someone of questionable morals teaching our children." Winona could not listen any more. She abandoned her basket and fled the store, tears blurring her vision. She had been so careful, so proper, and still people were talking about her, still people were questioning her character. It was Silver City all over again. She made it back to the schoolhouse before the tears really started to fall. She sank down onto her bed and cried, all the fear and frustration and loneliness pouring out of her. She had tried so hard to do everything right, and it still was not enough. There was a knock on her door, and she tried to pull herself together, but whoever was on the other side was persistent. "Winona," Fletcher's voice. "Are you all right? Mrs. Chen said you left the store in a hurry and you looked upset." Winona wiped at her face and opened the door. Fletcher took one look at her tear-stained face and his expression darkened. "What happened?" "People are talking about me," Winona said, her voice shaking. "I heard two women at the store. They were saying I was suspicious, that I was hiding something, that there might be something improper between you and me. I have tried so hard to be careful, Fletcher, and it does not matter. They are going to ruin me here just like they did in Silver City." Fletcher stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "Who were the women?" "I do not know their names," Winona said. "But that is not the point. The point is that people are talking, and once they start talking, it does not stop. It just grows and grows until everyone believes the worst." "Not everyone," Fletcher said firmly. "I do not believe the worst. Mrs. Patterson, Mr. Chen, Reverend Hughes, they do not believe the worst. You have friends here, Winona, people who know you and trust you. But there are also people who do not," Winona said. "And they are the ones who will spread the gossip, who will poison everyone else against me." Fletcher reached out and took her hands, and the touch sent a jolt through her. "Listen to me," he said. "You are not going to let them drive you away, not this time. You are going to stay here, and you are going to teach those children, and you are going to show everyone what kind of person you really are. And I am going to be right here beside you, supporting you, no matter what anyone says." "But that is just going to make the gossip worse," Winona protested. "If you are seen with me, people will talk even more." "Let them talk," Fletcher said. "I do not care what people say. I care about you, Winona. I have been trying to respect your wishes, to keep my distance, but I cannot stand by and watch you go through this alone. You matter to me. More than gossip, more than what other people think." Winona stared at him, her heart hammering in her chest. "Fletcher, you do not understand. If you associate with me, it could damage your reputation too. You have worked so hard to build your business here. I cannot let you risk that for me." "My business will survive," Fletcher said. "And if people want to judge me for standing by a good woman who has been wronged, then that says more about them than it does about me. I am not going to abandon you, Winona. I believe in you, and I am not going to let you face this alone." Something in Winona broke, some last wall of resistance crumbling in the face of his unwavering support. "I do not deserve your kindness," she whispered. "Yes, you do," Fletcher said. He reached up and gently brushed a tear from her cheek. "You deserve so much more than what you have been given. You deserve to be believed. You deserve to be respected. You deserve to be happy. And I am going to do everything in my power to make sure you get those things." Winona could not help herself. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him, and he held her tightly, his hand running soothingly down her back. She had not been held like this in so long, had not felt this kind of comfort and safety, and she let herself sink into it, let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe things could be different. "I am afraid," she admitted against his shoulder. "I am so afraid of losing everything again." "I know," Fletcher said, "but you are not going to lose everything, I promise you that. We are going to fight this together." Winona pulled back just enough to look up at him. "Why do you care so much? Why are you doing this for me?" Fletcher's gray-blue eyes were intense, serious. "Because I am falling in love with you, Winona. I think I have been since the moment I saw you ride into town, exhausted and afraid but still fighting. You are the strongest, bravest, most beautiful woman I have ever met, and I cannot imagine my life without you in it." Winona's breath caught. "Fletcher, I do not know what to say." "You do not have to say anything," Fletcher said. "I am not asking you for anything. I just wanted you to know how I feel so you understand why I am not going anywhere. No matter what happens, no matter what people say, I am going to be here." Winona felt tears welling up again, but this time they were different. These were not tears of fear or frustration, but tears of something else. Hope, maybe, or joy, or the overwhelming relief of knowing she was not alone. "I think I am falling in love with you too," she said quietly. "I have been trying not to, trying to keep my distance, trying to protect myself. But I cannot help it. You make me feel safe. You make me feel seen. You make me feel like maybe I can have a future after all." Fletcher smiled, and it was like the sun coming out after a storm. "Then we will have a future," he said, "together, if that is what you want." "It is what I want," Winona said, "but I am still afraid." "That is all right," Fletcher said. "We will be afraid together, and we will get through it together." He leaned down and kissed her, gentle and careful, and Winona felt something inside her settle into place, something that had been missing for a long time. This was right. This was good. This was worth fighting for. Over the next few weeks, Fletcher made good on his promise. He did not hide his feelings for Winona, and he did not care what people thought. He walked her to church on Sundays. He stopped by the schoolhouse in the evenings to help her with repairs and to bring her dinner. He made it clear to anyone who would listen that Winona was a good woman and that he was proud to know her. And slowly, gradually, the gossip began to die down. Not because people stopped being curious, but because there was nothing scandalous to see. Just a man and a woman spending time together, getting to know each other, building something real and honest. The children in Winona's class were thriving. She had a gift for teaching, for making lessons interesting and engaging, and even the most reluctant students were starting to show improvement. Parents began to comment on how much their children were learning, how excited they were to go to school each day. At the end of the 3-month trial period, the school board met with Winona again. This time, the meeting was brief and positive. "We are very pleased with your work, Miss Webster," Mrs. Patterson said. "The children are learning, and we have had nothing but positive feedback from the parents. We would like to offer you a permanent position." Winona felt relief wash over her. "Thank you," she said. "I am so grateful for this opportunity. I promise I will continue to do my best for the children of Old Tucson." "We have no doubt," Reverend Hughes said with a kind smile. "You have proven yourself to be exactly the teacher we needed." As Winona left the meeting, she felt lighter than she had in months. She had done it. She had built a new life here, had proven that she was more than the lie that had been told about her in Silver City. She had a job, a home, friends, and most importantly, she had Fletcher. That evening, Fletcher took her to dinner at the hotel restaurant. It was the first time they had been out together in such a public way, and Winona felt self-conscious at first, aware of the eyes on them. But Fletcher was so calm and confident, so clearly proud to be with her, that her nervousness faded. "I have something to ask you," Fletcher said as they finished their meal, "and I want you to think about it carefully before you answer." Winona felt her heart start to race. "What is it?" Fletcher reached across the table and took her hand. "I know we have not been courting for very long, and I know you have been through a lot and you might not be ready for this, but I cannot imagine spending my life with anyone else. Winona Webster, will you marry me?" Winona stared at him, her mind spinning. Marriage. It was everything she had never dared to hope for, especially after what had happened in Silver City. But here was this good, honest man, offering her not just his love but his name, his protection, his future. "Are you sure?" she asked. "People might still talk. They might say I trapped you or that you are making a mistake." "Let them say whatever they want," Fletcher said. "I am sure, Winona. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. I love you. I want to build a life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep next to you every night. I want to support your teaching and watch you make a difference in these children's lives. I want to have a family with you if that is something you want too. I want all of it with you." Winona felt tears streaming down her face again, but this time they were tears of pure joy. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you. I love you, Fletcher. I love you so much." Fletcher stood up and came around the table, pulling her to her feet and kissing her right there in the middle of the restaurant. There were a few gasps and whispers, but there was also applause, and when Winona pulled back, she saw that several people were smiling at them, genuinely happy for them. They were married a month later, in November of 1877, in a simple ceremony at the church. Winona wore a dress that Mrs. Patterson had helped her make, and Fletcher wore his best suit. Reverend Hughes officiated, and what seemed like the entire town turned out to witness the occasion. As Winona stood beside Fletcher and said her vows, she thought about how far she had come. A few months ago, she had ridden into this town broken and afraid, running from a lie that had destroyed her life. And now she was standing here, surrounded by friends, marrying a man who loved her and believed in her, starting a new chapter that was full of hope and promise. The lie had not won. She had. After the wedding, there was a celebration at the hotel. People brought food and there was dancing and laughter, and Winona felt surrounded by warmth and acceptance. These people had given her a chance when they had no reason to, and she was determined to prove herself worthy of their trust. Fletcher and Winona moved into a small house on Fletcher's ranch, a few miles outside of town. It was a beautiful place, with wide open views of the desert and mountains, and Winona loved the peace and quiet of it. She continued teaching, riding into town each morning and back each evening, and Fletcher continued running his stable and tending his cattle. Their life together was simple but deeply satisfying. They worked hard during the day and spent their evenings together, talking and laughing and planning for the future. Fletcher was a thoughtful, attentive husband, always making sure Winona felt loved and valued. And Winona discovered that she had a talent for ranch life, helping Fletcher with the animals and the land, finding joy in the physical work and the connection to the earth. In the spring of 1878, Winona discovered she was pregnant. She told Fletcher over dinner one evening, nervous about how he would react, but he was overjoyed. He scooped her up and spun her around, laughing and kissing her, talking about all the things they would teach their child, all the adventures they would have as a family. "I hope it is a boy," Fletcher said, "a son to help me with the ranch." "It could be a girl," Winona pointed out. "Then she will be the smartest, strongest girl in all of Arizona," Fletcher said, "just like her mother." Winona continued teaching through the summer, but by the time school started again in the fall, her pregnancy was too advanced for her to continue. The school board hired a temporary teacher to take her place, with the understanding that Winona would return after the baby was born if she wanted to. In December of 1878, Winona gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him James, after Fletcher's father, and he was perfect in every way. Fletcher was a devoted father from the first moment, holding his son with a tenderness that made Winona fall in love with him all over again. The early months of motherhood were exhausting but wonderful. Winona had never known she could love someone so much, so fiercely. James was a happy baby, quick to smile, and Winona loved watching Fletcher with him, teaching him things even though he was far too young to understand, talking to him about the ranch and the horses and all the things they would do together when James was older. When James was 6 months old, Winona returned to teaching part-time with Fletcher's mother, who had come to visit from Texas and decided to stay, helping with the baby during the day. It was the best of both worlds, Winona thought. She could continue the work she loved while also being a mother, and she had a family who supported her in both roles. Life was good. Better than good. It was everything Winona had never dared to dream of. One day in the summer of 1880, when James was a year and a half old, a stranger rode into Old Tucson. Winona was in town teaching when she saw him, a well-dressed man on a fine horse, asking questions at the general store. She thought nothing of it until Mr. Chen came to the schoolhouse that afternoon, his expression serious. "Miss Webster, I mean, Mrs. Anderson," he said. "There is a man in town asking about you. He says he is from Silver City." Winona felt her blood run cold. "What does he want?" "He would not say," Mr. Chen said, "but I thought you should know. He is staying at the hotel." Winona dismissed the children early and went to find Fletcher. He was at the stable, and when she told him about the stranger, his expression turned grim. "You want me to talk to him?" Fletcher asked. "No," Winona said. "I need to face this myself. Whatever it is, whatever he wants, I need to deal with it." Fletcher took her hand. "Then I am coming with you." They went to the hotel together, and Mrs. Patterson directed them to the room where the stranger was staying. Fletcher knocked, and a moment later the door opened to reveal a man in his 50s with graying hair and a kind face that looked vaguely familiar. "Miss Webster," the man said, and then corrected himself. "I apologize, Mrs. Anderson, I understand. My name is Thomas Holbrook." Winona felt as if the ground had dropped out from under her. This was the man at the center of the lie, the man whose wife had accused Winona of having an affair with him. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I came to find you," Thomas said. "To apologize and to set the record straight. May I come in and explain?" Winona looked at Fletcher, who nodded. They moved into the hotel room and Thomas closed the door behind them. "I do not know how much you know about what happened after you left Silver City," Thomas began, "but things fell apart rather quickly. My wife's accusations against you were just the beginning. She started accusing other women, becoming more and more erratic. It became clear that she was not well, that her mind was not stable. Eventually, she admitted to several people that she had lied about you, that she had made up the affair because she was jealous of your youth and beauty and the respect people had for you. By then, the damage was done. You were gone, and your reputation was destroyed. Winona sank down onto the bed, trying to process what she was hearing. She admitted she lied. Yes, Thomas said, and I have spent the past 2 years trying to find you, to tell you the truth, to clear your name. I have letters from people in Silver City, testifying to your good character, acknowledging that you were wronged. I wanted to bring them to you to help you in any way I can. He pulled a packet of letters from his coat and handed them to Winona. She opened them with trembling hands and read through them. Letters from former students and their parents, from the pastor of her church, from the owner of the boarding house where she had lived. All of them saying the same thing. Winona Webster was a good woman, a fine teacher, and she had been terribly wronged. Why did it take you so long to find me? Winona asked. I did not know where you had gone, Thomas said. I have been searching all over New Mexico and Arizona, asking at every town, every school. It was only last month that I heard about a teacher in Old Tucson who had come from Silver City, and I knew it had to be you. Winona looked at the letters in her hands, then at Fletcher, then back at Thomas. Thank you for this, she said. I appreciate you taking the time to find me and to bring me these letters, but I do not need them. I have built a new life here. I have a husband and a son and a job I love. The people here know my character. They do not need letters from Silver City to tell them who I am. Thomas looked surprised, then pleased. I am glad to hear it, he said. I am glad you have found happiness, but I still wanted you to have these in case you ever need them. And I wanted to apologize on behalf of my wife and myself for what you went through. You deserved better. Yes, I did, Winona said, but I have better now. So thank you, Mr. Holbrook, but you do not need to feel guilty anymore. I have moved on and I am happy. Thomas nodded, a smile crossing his face. Then I will leave you in peace. I am glad I found you, Mrs. Anderson. I am glad you are well. After he left, Winona sat in silence for a long moment, holding the letters. Then she looked at Fletcher. Can you believe it? After all this time, the truth finally came out. I always knew the truth, Fletcher said quietly. From the first moment I saw you. Winona set the letters aside and went to him, wrapping her arms around him. You saved me, she said. You believed in me when no one else did. You gave me a chance to start over. You gave me a life I never thought I could have. You saved yourself, Fletcher said. I just gave you a place to land. Everything else you did on your own. They went home that evening, and Winona tucked the letters away in a drawer. She did not need them, but she was glad to have them, glad to know that the truth had finally come to light. But more than that, she was glad for the life she had built, the family she had created, the love she had found. The years passed, full and rich. Winona had 2 more children, a daughter they named Sarah in 1882, and another son they named Michael in 1884. She continued teaching, her classroom always full of eager students, and Fletcher's ranch prospered. They were well respected in the community, known for their hard work and their generosity and their love for each other. Sometimes, on quiet evenings when the children were asleep, Winona would sit on the porch with Fletcher and look out at the desert landscape, and she would think about that day she had ridden into Old Tucson, desperate and afraid. She would think about how one man's kindness had changed everything, how his belief in her had given her the courage to rebuild her life. What are you thinking about? Fletcher would ask, and she would smile at him. Just how lucky I am, she would say. I am the lucky one, Fletcher would reply, and he would take her hand, and they would sit together in comfortable silence, grateful for everything they had. In 1895, when Winona was 42 and Fletcher was 45, they celebrated their 18th wedding anniversary. Their children were nearly grown, James preparing to take over more responsibility on the ranch, Sarah showing promise as a teacher herself, and Michael talking about becoming a veterinarian. The schoolhouse where Winona taught had been expanded twice to accommodate the growing population of Old Tucson, and Fletcher's ranch was one of the most successful in the area. They had dinner at the hotel, just the two of them, and as they sat across from each other, Winona marveled at how much life they had lived together, how much they had built. "You ever think about Silver City?" Fletcher asked. "Sometimes," Winona admitted, "but not with pain anymore. Just as a reminder of how far I have come, how much I have to be grateful for." "I am grateful too," Fletcher said. "Grateful that you rode into my town that day, grateful that you gave me a chance, grateful for every single day we have had together." "I love you," Winona said. "I have loved you from the moment you believed in me, before I even said a word. You saw who I really was, and you never doubted it." "I love you too," Fletcher said, "and I will keep believing in you, keep loving you for as long as I live." They went home that night, to the ranch they had built together, to the life they had created, and Winona felt a deep, abiding peace. She had been running from a lie all those years ago, broken and afraid and alone. But she had found a man who believed her, who loved her, who stood by her through everything, and together they had built something beautiful. The lie had not won. Love had. As the years continued to pass, Winona and Fletcher watched their children grow into capable, kind adults. James married a rancher's daughter from a neighboring property in 1898, and within a year, Winona and Fletcher became grandparents to a baby girl named Emma. Sarah followed her mother's footsteps and became a teacher, taking over Winona's classes when Winona finally retired from teaching in 1900 at the age of 47. Michael went to study veterinary medicine in California and returned to Old Tucson in 1903, opening a practice that served the ranchers and farmers of the area. Winona's retirement from teaching was bittersweet. She had devoted nearly 30 years to educating the children of Old Tucson, and it felt strange to step away from the work that had defined so much of her life. But Fletcher was getting older too, and she wanted to spend more time with him, wanted to enjoy the fruits of all their hard work. They traveled a bit, taking trips to San Francisco and Denver, places Winona had only read about in books. They visited Fletcher's family in Texas, and Winona finally got to meet his sisters and their families. Everywhere they went, they were together, enjoying each other's company, still finding new things to talk about, still making each other laugh. In 1905, when Winona was 52, she received a letter that surprised her. It was from Margaret Holbrook, the woman who had told the lie that had driven Winona from Silver City all those years ago. The letter was an apology, long and rambling, full of regret and self-recrimination. Margaret wrote that she had spent years in an asylum, being treated for what doctors called a nervous disorder, and that she was now in her right mind again. She wrote that she had never forgotten the terrible things she had done to Winona, and that she wanted to apologize and to beg for forgiveness. Winona read the letter several times, trying to sort through her feelings. There was anger there still, even after all these years. Anger at the pain Margaret had caused, at the life Winona had been forced to leave behind, but there was also pity and a kind of understanding. Margaret had been sick, her mind not her own, and she had paid a terrible price for her illness. In the end, Winona wrote back. She told Margaret that she forgave her, because holding on to anger was too exhausting, and because the lie had ultimately led Winona to a better life than she ever could have imagined. She told Margaret about Fletcher, about their children, about the school and the ranch and the community they had built. She told Margaret that she was happy, truly happy, and that she hoped Margaret could find some peace as well. After she sent the letter, Winona felt lighter, as if she had been carrying a weight she had not even realized was there. The lie no longer had any power over her. It was just a thing that had happened, a long time ago, to a different version of herself. Fletcher found her on the porch that evening, looking out at the sunset. "You all right?" he asked, sitting down beside her. "I am more than all right," Winona said. "I was just thinking about how strange life is. How the worst thing that ever happened to me led to the best thing that ever happened to me." "Meeting me, you mean?" Fletcher said with a grin. "Exactly," Winona said, laughing. "If Margaret Holbrook had not lied about me, I never would have left Silver City. I never would have ridden into Old Tucson. I never would have met you. I never would have had this life." "I guess we owe her a debt of gratitude then," Fletcher said. "I suppose we do," Winona said, "though I would not go so far as to thank her." They sat together, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to purple, and Winona leaned her head on Fletcher's shoulder. This man, this good and steady man, had been her rock for nearly 30 years. He had believed in her when she had nothing, had loved her when she felt unlovable, had stood by her through everything. She could not imagine her life without him. "Promise me something," she said. "Anything," Fletcher said. "Promise me we will have many more years together." "I am not ready to be done with you yet." Fletcher laughed and kissed the top of her head. "I promise to do my best, though neither of us is getting any younger. We have good years left in us," Winona said, "and I intend to enjoy every single one of them with you," and they did. Fletcher and Winona lived well into their 70s, a remarkable age for the time, and they remained active and engaged with their community until the very end. They watched their children thrive and their grandchildren grow, and by the time Winona passed away peacefully in her sleep in 1923, at the age of 70, she had 7 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. Fletcher followed her less than a year later in early 1924, and the town of Old Tucson mourned the loss of 2 of its most beloved citizens. They were buried side by side in the town cemetery, under a cottonwood tree with a headstone that read simply, "Fletcher and Winona Anderson, together always." Their children and grandchildren gathered at the graveside, sharing stories and memories. James talked about how his father had taught him everything about ranching, about honesty and hard work and treating people with respect. Sarah talked about how her mother had inspired her love of teaching, how Winona had shown her that education could change lives. Michael talked about how both his parents had encouraged him to follow his dreams, even when it meant leaving Old Tucson for a time to pursue his studies. And the grandchildren, some of whom had never known a time when Fletcher and Winona were not together, marveled at the love story they had heard countless times growing up. The story of how Winona had ridden into town, running from a lie, and how Fletcher had believed her before she said a word. The story of how they had built a life together against the odds, had raised a family, had become pillars of their community. It was a story worth remembering, worth passing down through the generations. A story about the power of belief, the strength of love, and the possibility of second chances. In the end, the lie that had driven Winona from Silver City had become nothing more than a footnote in a much larger, much more beautiful story. The story of 2 people who found each other when they needed it most, who built something lasting and true, who proved that love could overcome anything. And that story, the story of Fletcher and Winona Anderson, lived on long after they were gone, a testament to the enduring power of love and faith, and the simple act of believing in someone when they needed it most. The schoolhouse where Winona had taught for so many years was eventually named in her honor, the Winona Anderson School, and generations of children passed through its doors, learning not just reading and writing and arithmetic, but also the values that Winona had embodied: kindness, perseverance, integrity, and the courage to start over when life knocked you down. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, when the desert wind blew through Old Tucson and the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and red, people would swear they could see two figures sitting together on the porch of the old ranch house, holding hands and watching the sky together always, just as their headstone promised. It was a love story for the ages, born in the Wild West, forged in hardship and trust, and lasting far beyond the boundaries of a single lifetime. And it all began with a simple truth. Sometimes, the best love stories start when someone believes in you, even before you say a word.